When did political broadcasting become a popularity contest instead of a battlefield of ideas? The booing of Nigel Farage at the 2024 TRIC Awards isn't just a petty reaction from an industry elite allergic to dissent. It's symptomatic of a broader rut within Britain's media ecosystem. The irony is lost on no one. A man awarded Best News Presenter 2 years running is still treated like an uninvited guest at a party thrown in his honor. Why? Because his success appends the carefully constructed echo chamber that the mainstream broadcasting world has clung to for decades. What the Farage TRIC saga lays bare is the institutional discomfort with platforms that challenge the status quo. GB News, love it or loathe it, represents an alternative voice in a media landscape that has long grown complacent. The public voted with their eyeballs. Farage won, twice. And yet, the reaction from the industry insiders isn't to engage, debate, or even tolerate. It's to jeer, to sneer, to delete. This isn't about liking or disliking Farage. Politics isn't performance art. It's a realm of conflict, of competing visions, and yes, of uncomfortable truths. Farage's scathing critique of Bob, the organization responsible for television ratings, was not some off-the-cuff conspiracy. It was a reasoned challenge to an opaque system, one with deep implications for advertising, content decisions, and ultimately, democracy itself. And the punishment for raising those questions: censorship, erasure, and derision. That's not journalism. That's authoritarian gatekeeping wearing a velvet glove. The media in Britain fancies itself as the fourth estate, the pillar of accountability, the bastion of free speech. But what happens when that same media class uses institutional control to silence or marginalize dissenting voices? The answer is exactly what we saw at the TRIC Awards, a grotesque spectacle where the industry turns on its own for daring to color outside the lines. It wasn't just a room full of people booing a man. It was an entire machine rejecting the legitimacy of political opposition, live and unfiltered. And let's not be coy, this has always been the double standard. When a liberal host challenges the establishment, they are brave. When a conservative figure does the same, they are a threat to democracy. The press gleefully covers protesters shouting down right-wing figures, then clutches its pearls when a leftist gets interrupted. The reality is, the British media class is deeply tribal, increasingly illiberal, and terrified of losing its narrative monopoly. And when someone like Farage, with the audacity to bring facts, conviction, and ratings to the table, gains traction, it panics. That's the real fear behind the boos. Not Farage the man, but what he represents, disruption. He exposes how insulated, fragile, and ideologically uniform our broadcasting institutions have become. When he calls out the incestuous relationship between broadcasters and the ratings apparatus, it strikes a nerve. Not because it's wrong, but because it's uncomfortably right. The same people who claim to worship data suddenly go silent when asked to defend the methodology behind Bob's 5,300 household panel. No transparency, no debate, just rage against the questioner. This is not just media politics. It's a microcosm of the broader political climate, a place where speaking plainly, questioning orthodoxy, and offering an alternative path is treated not as necessary dissent, but as dangerous rebellion. Farage's willingness to flip the bird to that hypocrisy may offend sensibilities, but it's also a rare act of honesty in an environment ruled by doublespeak. And here's the uncomfortable truth for the detractors. GB News is here to stay. Not because it has wealthy backers or political patrons, but because there's a yawning chasm in British media where trust and authenticity used to be. Viewers are switching off the sanctimonious sermonettes of the legacy channels and tuning into voices that don't speak down to them, don't filter every segment through a lens of progressive groupthink, and don't pretend objectivity while quietly sneering at those outside the Westminster media clique. To those who claim Farage isn't a real journalist, consider this: journalism is not defined by your dress code or your social standing. It's defined by your willingness to challenge power, question systems, and speak to an audience without paternalistic contempt. On all those counts, Farage is succeeding where many polished professionals have failed. That's not a scandal, it's a signal. The path forward isn't to banish voices like Farage to the margins, it's to meet them head-on in the arena of ideas. If his arguments are flawed, debate them. If his facts are wrong, disprove them. But booing, censoring, or trying to erase his wins from public record, that's not resistance. That's cowardice. The TRIC Awards wanted to celebrate television. What they did, instead, was expose an industry afraid of its own audience.